Alrighty folks, this is Lurch from Airline Gaming and welcome back to another episode of From the Depths. Today I have been building a hovercraft, or rather, failing to build a hovercraft. I've been faffing about with this for, a while now, couple of hours, and the farthest I've got is this here. But look, it hovers. See? If you press caps lock in build mode. I spent ages trying to get this gun to do what I wanted it to do, but to no avail. It's taken me a lot longer to get it the way I wanted it. I was initially going with a single barrel and decided multi-barrel was really the only way to go for what I wanted it to do. So, we have this monstrosity. But rather than go straight into the building, I'm going to get this guy out of play again. This is just like I like to do, is get a rough shape for how the ship is going to be whenever I finish building it. This is like a rough profile. You can see I've already started fleshing it out a little bit. I figured I'd bring you guys in this time because I've been guilty in the past of just going ahead and building the whole bloody thing off camera and not showing anything about how it's put together or anything like that. And it does sort of give a better idea of how the thing sort of all fits as a complete unit. I just want to draw your attention as well to these awesome things that Nick added. He added loads of details to the little blocks. I imagine there's going to be more coming as well. I think he was talking that he can put bars and stuff on these with information. But as it is now, it's got this lovely health amount and the name of the blueprint on it, which is very cool. You see I've got the Iron Arms Burstmaster turret over there, which is from the armory. I'm using two of them here, and I have another turret here that we're going to have a look at now. So let's get rid of this guy and we will spawn in the hover test. This is a platform I have been working off. I think I have built 4 railguns now to find one that I really wanted, and I wanted one that would work with a battery bank of this size. So I have a battery bank of this size and with no more than this engine capacity, and this is completely overkill. I ended up with this railgun here. Let's have a quick look at the stats. Just hop on board here so we can refresh the cooldowns. Oh, off we go. You'll see we have missiles on board. After seeing a couple of the hover designs on the forums, there was some really cool designs, and some awesome ones had missiles incorporated into the turrets, which looks absolutely class. So I decided to do the same here, and yeah, I just built them into the turrets. Now, one thing to remember if you're building these things yourself is put down the advanced firing piece first. If you put the missile piece first, the AI will aim it as if it's a missile launcher, and it won't account for vertical and all that sort of jazz, so it doesn't work very well with cannons. So just make sure that you get your firing piece down first. But yeah, that it works. It does the job. It's got the added benefit of, you know, always facing roughly towards your target whenever you're firing them. So combined missile and cannon turret. These are actually Squirrel Hunter missiles from Ruger's AA platform, the small arms one, and they're very effective at taking down fast-moving air targets. Quite agile missiles, quite fast, and quite a lot of fuel as well. It's the IR Seekers, I think, that makes them so good. But yeah, this is it's a 161mm. It's got 702 energy used per shot, and it takes 0.702 seconds to fully charge, which is class. It only gives a very small railgun speed boost. It's like 95, and it does actually have a railgun casing on the shell. I'll show you the shell in a little second. The percentage of accuracy used for buff is 50%, and this is the main reason I actually wanted it on this cannon, was to have a shell accuracy boost, because here we have 33, 13, and if we put it down to 50%, we lose about 50 meters per second on the shell, which is 134 down to, okay, not too bad, down to about 96, yeah, 95, there we go, 95.1, so it pays off pretty well to get a 50% accuracy bonus for that. I think this accuracy buff thing is really awesome for the railguns. I think it makes them quite good for utility in certain shells, especially for slower firing shells, because you can get a fairly reasonable accuracy bonus for very little power if you don't use a massive infrastructure for them. I think the railguns are really quite cool now. I really like them. So yeah, this guy is a a feat of Tetris. Like I say, this is like the third or fourth attempt at this turret. But the first one I built, well, the first one I've already deleted because it was more or less the same as this one, but a little bit worse. This was the second iteration, and it's a slow fire single barrel, and this was before I decided to go with the multi-barrel idea. I took this guy and built it in an exploded view because I'm an idiot for not doing it in that way in the first, because whenever I started building this, I just built the turret. And here's a great example of why guesstimating it is a bad idea. I built a lot of turrets, and I guesstimated that it would need 4 belt feeders to keep this loaded with all of these coolers. I was so wrong. We actually only need 2. Strictly speaking, we only need 1. But yeah, it's better to lay them out and test them first, and I'll show you that guy over there in a second. I want to talk about the ammo first, because these are all firing the same thing. But that iteration is single barrel, and the refire rate is just too slow to be really useful. Now, we have a 161 here. It's a solid and 2 sabots with a railgun casing. If we're using 3 powder, it does actually do enough damage to use a solid body here instead, and you'll still get above the armor pierce value. But the railgun casing reduces your cooldown time, which is very, very important for actually making your turrets a little bit smaller, because we need less coolers then. And even though we used 4 barrels, it meant I could skimp off maybe 15 coolers compared to how many I would need for a single barrel, which is quite effective. So in that case, we're only using 2 loaders with these solid sabot shells, and they work really quite well. Let's see, this is the test cannon, and this was the one I built last before I finally crammed it all into this. It's got 10 coolers, or 10 chargers, sorry, and they allow me to get a reasonably good charge value off these. It charges very quickly. With a lower amount of coolers, I mean, especially with 4 barrels, it's very, very hard to get the refire rate to make railguns effective. But that is if you want to use it with a fast refire cannon. Railguns are very, very cheap and effective to add to slower firing cannons. It doesn't take much infrastructure, they don't cost much power. The only thing is these attachment fixtures and magnets actually are quite expensive. If we just have a look at the railgun features here, 1020, the magnets are about 1000, the chargers are over 1000 as well, so they all add up to a cost, and it's really the resource cost that you're paying for the benefit rather than a sacrifice to the efficiency of your vehicle, if you know what I mean. It's all a sort of nice trade-off system. But yeah, this is the cannon I eventually arrived at, and just crammed it in here and then put as many dampers on as I could fit. Now I'm using a rather interesting clip method that Ruger found. Well, it was actually somewhere in the forums, I think, said it, or it might have even been Reddit. It was a while ago. But you can actually attach clips to the side of clips, because the bottom of a clip, and I'll just demonstrate here. If we look at the clips and look at the little attachy things, the little horn one, or the sort of bigger cone at the bottom there, indicates an output into the like the firing piece, or not the firing piece, into the autoloader, and the other sides are all inputs, and therefore any ammo input. So I can do that, and then I can stick another one on the side here, and I can stick another one on the side here, and we can do this if we want to. Now this is really inefficient, don't do this. But it does allow some interesting configurations. So the one, well, about the only really useful one is the one I've actually used here. Me and Ruger played around with this for quite a while. Doesn't matter, I'll just use this guy as an example. To try and find an optimal configuration for any sort of advantage to these. And this is about the only advantage, like big advantage you can get. Because this way you can get 3 clips into a 3x3 area with 5 inputs, and to get that onto something else onto straight loaded ones, we get a slightly different configuration. So if we do it with just 2 clips, we can get the loaders on the side, the inputs on the side, and the clip here we've only got 2 clips, we have 5 inputs, but 2 of them are attached to the autoloader, which means that we sacrifice 50% of our reload speed there, or 50% of our shell to clip time. It takes twice as long for these. So these 2 essentially count as 1. This allows us with 5 inputs in a 3x3 in ratio to 2 clips. The other way, you get a slightly better efficiency bonus out of these, and it's kind of handy for Tetrising things the way I have done it here. So, after all that hashing and jabbering and all that sort of stuff, I should probably get on with actually building something. That might be a good idea. But I am kind of happy how this turned out in the end. I don't normally go for AP cannons. I'm in the current dev test, and there's a whole load of changes to damage and armor and all that stuff, so I'm not too worried about optimizing the shell. A good thing that Ruger has recommended while this dev test is if you're designing cannons, design them based around your propellant rather than the actual damage, because then the propellant is probably not going to change, but the damage is very, very likely to. So, yeah, it's something to bear in mind if you're actually designing things at the minute. Don't worry too much about what the damage is going to do, because it's all changing rapidly. It'll probably have changed maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times before this video even hits YouTube. But anyway, I'm going to cut here, I'm going to get the hover back in, and we're going to start building. Alright, so we're about this far along. I've got most of the internals in. I've added quite a considerable rack of missiles at the back here. Because this is a hovercraft, it's going to be floating about 10 or 15 meters up, probably about this distance, so using missiles is okay. They shouldn't have much risk of tipping into the water, provided my nose isn't pointing up too high. I didn't put ejectors on for this reason, and I think they've got low ramp-up time. I turned it down to 0.5 instead of 1, and the cat's going mad. Yeah, and I've added a bunch of engines. Now, here's a novel concept for you in ammo barrel placement. Now, ammo barrels are one of the targets for aim point selection, along with weapons and AIs. They're one of the first things that the target prioritization will go for, or the aim point selection will go for. So, you can place them further away from your centre of mass. Now, the centre of mass is way up over there. You can see the blue marker here, way over here. And this is where I'm putting my ammo barrels. Now, I'm going to be putting more on, but that's because I'm going to be adding like hover wings to the side here to make it look more like a hover tank type thing. You know, some sort of daddy heli blades. They're probably going to be more aesthetic than functional because I'm going to be getting most of my lift from thrusters. The plan for this thing is to use a PID controller to maintain my altitude, and we're using a naval AI, as you might have seen. But yeah, back to the ammo barrels. The reason you place them further from the center of mass is because they are going to move more as your craft moves around than things closer to the center of mass, based on the distance from the fulcrum. So with smaller movements of the craft, this is going to move a lot more than something that would go here. So that would only move up maybe 1 or 2 blocks, whereas this is going to move up 2, 3, 4, quite a big variance. Now this has a great sort of added benefit of confusing target prediction, because if your craft is pointing this way, and let's bring a mouse up just so you can see, we're here and the target fires, but whenever we move a little bit more, we're down here. If we were over here, if we take our line from the center of mass all the way like down to here, say, whenever we're here, but whenever we're here, we're only here. So we've moved a considerably lower distance, and it's more likely to hit that target. So if you have a bigger variance, you're more likely to confuse the target prediction, and, you know, less likely to get hit. Now, I do have them at the front of the ship here, which doesn't mean that any trailing shots that are sort of lagging behind may hit the rest of my ship, but that is a price I'm willing to pay. And like I say, I'm going to have additional ones to confuse it a little bit more. But that's just an interesting concept. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, so please feel free to post in the comments and see what you think about that sort of concept. I find it seems to work pretty well. Also, with it being in the nose, it's very easy to isolate it from other components, so it won't actually do any damage to them whenever it goes up like a firework. We've also got these here, but they're far enough as our fuel. But we're far enough away from these that it'll be not much of an issue. Many of the other things are sort of tucked quite reasonably well, protected away. We've used quite a lot of engines. I've got 2 mules, and I actually I rebuilt them with symmetry mode. Really handy way to, like, if you have a prefab that's not symmetrical, and you place it down on one side, you can hold shift and, like, press R, and then replace the next block, press R, replace, press R, replace, so on and so forth until you have everything rebuilt, and it'll do it automatically in symmetry for you. It's very handy for something like this mule engine, which isn't actually symmetrical. Whenever I placed it on the other side, it was the same as this one, rather than the other way around, as it should be, you know, for symmetry and stuff. But yeah, figured to bring you back and introduce that interesting concept, and yeah, that's more or less it for the internals, I think. We have ammo processors, we have AI, we have weapons, we have ammo with a little bit more to be added, we have engines, we have fuel. Yeah, I think that's about it. We're nearly ready to start shaping the hull, I think, and whenever we have the whole hull shape put into place, then we can worry about adding a PID and propulsion. I just have to remember, that's right. Yeah, I have my naval AI, and I have to have room for a couple of PIDs here, actually. We need one for... I'm going to be using naval roll, and we need one for naval pitch as well. But I need a general purpose one for, which is in the other slot here, and this is the one that's going to do our altitude for us, because it has the altitude tab. And this lets us set an altitude, say here, and set it to test simulus, and it'll use all vertical propulsion to try and get into that area. But I'll talk about that more whenever I get around to configuring it. It probably won't be in this episode, but I'm going to leave them there. So yeah, I'm going to start doing a little bit more of the shaping of the hull, and probably come back to wrap it up, and we'll finish it off in maybe the next episode, or depending how long it takes, this might take quite a while to refine. Yeah, we'll carry it on. So straight back to the buildy montage thing. Okay, well, I think that looks pretty good so far, but I've kind of run out of time for today, so I'm going to cut this video together and get it posted for you, and I'm going to work up more on this probably for the next episode, and I will keep it all on camera so, you don't miss anything. Before I wrap it up, I will just talk about roughly what I've been doing here, and it's literally as simple as cladding as much metal on top of the things that I have placed already as I can, and trying and keep the shape at least sort of roughly smooth. I don't have a particular build in mind. I'm not going off... Oh, that's wrong. I'm not going off a particular schematic or anything like that. I've no... whatchamacallit to work from. That work? Is that right? That is right. Good. Yeah, I'm not working off like an image or anything like that. So this is all coming from my head as I go. Sometimes I do actually work off a concept image, and it really, really helps focus your build and give you a rough idea what the hell you're supposed to be doing, because it can be really hard at times to actually just work out what you want to build. Yeah. One thing I am trying to do is layer up the armor. With the new armor changes impending, layered armor is going to be a thing, so it's worthwhile taking that into consideration when you're doing builds. You'll get an armor bonus as whenever you have more layers, so this is all at least double layered, and this will mean that the first layer will get more armor than the last one. The details are all still being ironed out, so I haven't really mentioned it at all. I said earlier it'll change rapidly between episode to episode, but for now I will wrap it up here. I really hope you enjoyed this little building episode, and yeah, I hope you come back for the next one, where we will probably, hopefully, be able to finish this all off. Any likes, subs or comments are really, really awesome. I love hearing from you guys, and I read every single comment. As always, take it handy and have a bloody good day.